Hello. It's Thursday. It's just after 4 p.m. It's time to stream. Marc draws in the afternoon. Working title. How is everyone? Everyone well? It is Thursday. I think it's Thursday. I've lost all bearings on the week. We last streamed on Tuesday. That feels like that was last week. It wasn't. It was 2 days ago. Um, what has happened since? The other Robin has followed. Thank you, the other Robin, for following. Today's stream, I am going to be inking this Chloe Noonan drawing that I did. Um, I do postcards as like a thank you gift for people who buy stuff from my online shop, and I've run out, so I decided it was a good time to do a new one. So this will be that image. I have a version of this that I drew earlier in Procreate. And the best thing about Procreate is that it gives you a time lapse of your pencils, which then you can show off on Instagram. And I thought I'd show you and sort of talk through essentially what I did wrong for a day. So let's get into that. I had it all set up. Okay, cool. So I originally started out in portrait, and then I decided to make it landscape. There we go. I knew I wanted an image of Chloe knocking out a monster. The monster I had in my mind was a bit like a squiddy monster with like a googly, tentacly mouth. I knew that Chloe's best friend Zoe was going to be in there. And I got the Chloe drawing great straight away. Like that wasn't the issue. It was, as as you'll soon see, the monster. The monster gave me so much grief. I sort of just blocked it out to begin with, and then tried to, I don't know, just try and just wing it, and it didn't quite work. So what you're about to see is about 20 attempts at this monster flashing before your eyes. The bits I did like with the eyes, I thought I got that big buggy-eyed like expression down to begin with. I soon realised I needed to design a character because I wasn't winging it properly. So I spent most of yesterday afternoon just drawing monsters. And I was having a bit of trouble with them because I was like, I couldn't quite grasp what influence I was trying to kind of get across. So at one point, I thought about old Ninja Turtle toys and how dumb they are. So I started designing. What if I could like design my own Ninja Turtle toy from the 80s? And I was like, I like my Squid Boy, so I'm going to carry on with the sort of like tentacly mouth. Give him a mohawk, maybe an eye patch. Give him some armor, and then I sort of came up with this guy, this green guy on screen right now. And I was like, well, I'll look at some other Ninja Turtle toys, and I just started copying them. Thank you to Sonolger, Sonolg123 for following. So yeah, I did that for a little while, and then I was like, no, I'm going to draw Squiddy Boy. And then I realized the eye patch wouldn't work because I quite liked the impact being on the eye. So I sort of locked in on that. And I was like, great, that face looks brilliant. And then the rest of it gave me some trouble. Essentially, I do this thing where if I draw someone coming towards the camera, I always sort of draw them like with their arms back, kind of, like they're sort of like going against the wall like that. But it just didn't look right. So I did that. I drew those arms about 4 or 5 times. before realizing that I should maybe try something a bit different. You'll soon see in a second that I try warping the arm to try and like give it a better angle, but it wasn't working. So in the end, I decided to move that arm outwards to give it a bit more dynamism. And then I decided to block the characters in, essentially using the remnants of the building. So the idea that Chloe's walloped this monster all the way through a building, and it will be framed with the sort of debris, the hole that has been formed. And yeah, so that was like 2.5 minutes, but that was most of my Wednesday afternoon slash Thursday morning. Um, Sorry for scaring people in the chat that these monsters are too scary. Sorry, John. I'll try for a little bit more like less triggering monsters next time. Some soft boys or girls. So yeah, today I'm going to be inking. A very laid back stream, I hope. It's been a tough couple of days. Um, not to get into things, but a nice relaxing stream would be quite good. But if you've got any questions, give them a shout in the chat. I need to make sure my settings are right because they never are. Cool. So the app that I drew the pencils in is Procreate. I like Procreate for mucking around. I find myself to be a little less precious. But I do all my proper work in Clip Studio. This is all on the iPad. The iPad Pro. The proest of iPads. Let me know how I sound, because I fiddled with the settings before I came on. And a shout to Carpe Liam for the realizing that I was playing some Scott Pilgrim game music. It's like my favorite, like, video game soundtrack, I reckon. Of a game that you can now like no longer play because it's in like rights limbo. My PlayStation account will tell me that I once played uh, Scott Pilgrim versus the World on a PlayStation 3, which I do not remember even owning. Um, but I cannot play that again, so thanks for that. Yeah, Carpe Liam says, I still have it downloaded on my 360. See, I had a 360 as well. And then the Red Ring of Death came along, and then I think I just took it to the tip in the end. But if I had Scott Pilgrim on there, I would probably still have it. I still persevere with it. That was such a weird time when that movie came out and then tanked. But there was so much like decent Scott Pilgrim stuff around that time, like the video game, like the action figures, and then it just all went away really quickly. What a shame. I think there's been, I don't know, a bit of a backlash about Scott Pilgrim the books recently. I don't know if it's just me being like seeing more than one tweet about someone moaning about Scott Pilgrim, um, and I've decreed that it's an outrage. But yeah, It's been a long time since I've read Scott Pilgrim. I think they still hold up as being good, but the characters are never supposed to be like model citizens. Maybe Kim Pine. Yeah, Carpe Liam brings up the ending. Yeah, the ending was fine. I feel like endings are hard. Endings are really hard, especially when they're of a such well loved property that has been going on for like what 8 years. I think Scott Pilgrim took in general. As a writer, like you've just got to go with what you want. I think you can pander to your fans, but you're just not going to give everyone what they want. Especially in a story like Scott Pilgrim, where like some people wanted him to end up with Kim, and then some people wanted him to end up with Ramona, and then some people wanted him to end up with Knives, and it was like, okay. I thought the last like 3 pages of Scott Pilgrim are beautiful, really well done. Sort of going through the hyper door. Johnny says in the chat, people don't want something to end, so any ending is considered faulty. Yep, 100%. Sometimes think that like if say like a TV show gets cancelled, right, and it's like cut off in its prime, sometimes that can be for the best. Maybe stuff should just stop. I always think about Spaced. Like Spaced just did 2 seasons, and then they were umming and ahhing about doing a third one, but they just I don't know. They just stopped. Johnny says, yes, because then it is then left to the watcher's imagination, which is apparently perfect, was what I read on Reddit. Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier, just give them what they want. Literally, they can figure that out their own ending. So what's been going on the last couple of days since we've last spoke? I got a pitch approved, which is quite nice. You could probably imagine what it's for. It's not for this, what I'm drawing now. So that's quite good. I am really enjoying my time drawing these Noonan characters again. So I'm reluctant to stop, but hopefully I'll have a schedule that doesn't mean I have to give up my drawing joy in order to suck the teat of making money. John, it's not Gem and the Holograms. It's not my fresh new take on the Joker or Punchline, the hot new Joker's girlfriend. I'm going to introduce another 3 Joker's girlfriends. That's what I'm doing. It's going to be 3 new Joker's girlfriends and a couple of Joker's boyfriends. Joker's got a new pen pal. The Batman Who Laughs LOB style. I like that. I always think about like what I would do if I could actually do a superhero comic. I guess that's what I'm going to be doing. It's not for Marvel, but it's very, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about like what I want to be drawing. And turns out I just want to draw a lot of fighting. Sonal G123 says, I'd like to see your take on the Tick. I was thinking about the Tick recently because I watched a little bit of the Amazon show, and I was trying to remember if they still do comics, if Ben Endland still does Tick comics, and if he doesn't, which is fine because he mainly works in TV now. If he's ever thought about licensing the Tick out, that might be a good comic. The Tick I always just see as like a free comic book day comic. It seems to be like a free comic book day comic and then nothing else. And it seems weird because it's got a TV show. Well, it had a TV show with Peter Serafinowicz. No, I can't pronounce his name properly. Um, but like most things, the Tick, it got canned. Amazon were like, no, thank you. We just want Lord of the Rings. The Tick cartoon was amazing. That was very 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 good. Um, a lot of people did love that Amazon show. Yeah, I gave it a go, and then kind of forgot about it a little bit. Yeah, the Tick got canned at season 2, so sorry. It was all down to me. Um, maybe he could do a Look Around You reboot. Yeah, the 90s live action one, which I never saw either. Patrick Warburton's The Tick. I think Amazon had that for a little while, but then I think they let that go because I was trying to find it the other month. Patrick Warburton, man, is like whenever he rocks up in anything, like even his voice, oh man, it's so much joy. Like when he rocks up in Venture Brothers and Emperor's New Groove, yeah, and Seinfeld, yeah, always a good time. Oh man, he's so good as Brock in Venture Brothers. God, is Venture Brothers the best Adult Swim cartoon? I think it might be. Sorry, fans. I am well, thank you, people in the chat. Thanks for joining. Carpe Liam still says weird things from look around you. Yeah, same. I think I still say the thanks bit. Man, what a wild time all that comedy was. I've been trying to get as much drawing done as I can. Because I'm trying to get my Patreon launched next week. I'm going to try and launch it for May 1st. So if you're a fan of Patreons, yeah, I will be hopefully launching that on May 1st. I've got some ideas. I'm going to try and keep it as low as I can with a couple of higher tiers. But yeah, the idea being that I'd like to do more of these Noonan comics, but I need a little bit of financial support, which is weird because it's a weird time. But one of the chief medical officers of Britain yesterday essentially said that if anyone thinks anything is going to go back to normal by the summer, they've got another thing coming. So I don't think there's going to be any comic conventions. I can't see any comic conventions being this year. I know we've been talking about that a lot recently, so I think I need to get an old Patreon off the ground. I had one a few years back, but it was wild. I don't know. I'm going to be a lot more like, I don't know. Sometimes with patrons, you turn into this art and demand sort of thing where you're just giving people what they want rather than what you want to do, and that's not really how Patreon should work. Some people made me feel really guilty about like only earning about a little over £100 a month, and that not being enough to work on like say my own comics, which is fair enough. But a few people made me feel a little bit guilty. I think someone said to me once regarding my Patreon, food comes first, and your Patreon will be the first to go. It's like, okay, all right, that's fine. I'm not asking you to like not eat your tin peaches, but yeah, wild. So hopefully none of that this time. So I'm trying to get as much drawing done as I can in order to do like a thank you, like PDF, like a sketchbook sort of thing. Um, it's weird. Sometimes when I'm drawing my own characters, I've been trying to get out of the habit of drawing them a bit like Rick and Morty. So like sometimes the Rick and Morty mouths are still there. I'm trying to get out of that a little bit. Trying to trying to bring back my own mouth. My own mouth? Sometimes I still do the little asterisks for eyes, and I have to sort of remind myself. This image, which I really like this image. I am going to hire a colorist to do it up for me, to test the waters a little bit. And Patreon hopefully can help with that. That's sort of the idea, really, is that I might need to hire someone to help with the stuff that I don't want to do, and colouring isn't something I'm particularly that interested in. So yeah, just kind of want to test the waters really and see what I can sort of commission people to do and how much it will cost me. Johnny asks in the chat, do you find you have to fix art before it gets to the colorist? He makes so many mistakes that he only spots when coloring. Yeah, I do. You know what? I get Robin to look at my pages for me, and then she just goes through it, like, with, you know, holding it close up, seeing if I've gone over a line or something. I do spend a bit of time getting the pages ready for a colorist, because you've got to make their life easier. So if you're doing color holds, they need to be on a separate layer, obviously. But does the layer need labeling correctly? Do you have screen tones? Do you have speed lines? Sorry, they all need to be labeled up properly. So speed line panel 1, speed line panel 7. So I find that stuff sort of slows me down a little bit. In terms of mistakes, yeah, I still find them like when we're going over PDFs and stuff, but unless it's something like really glaring, I let it through. I think because John and I shared a colorist for a while. Sarah Stern colored Rick and Morty stuff for me. I think she was pretty good at spotting if I had made a mistake or something as well. I just worked with an amazing colorist, Leonardo Ito, and he sent me a very nice email afterwards, sort of like thanking me for like making his life easier by like having color holds on a separate layer and stuff. And I was just thinking like that's what illustrators should be doing anyway. That should be industry standard. It's a thankless task being a colorist because you never get mentioned in reviews. But like for me, like a colorist is 50% of the artwork. Oh, a color hold. It's when you have like a line. Say you want a line a different color than the black line work. You would have that as a separate layer, and then they could grab it quite easily. I think they call it a color hold. So, for example, if I wanted to, if I wanted Chloe's say I wanted Chloe's eyes to be essentially not black. I would have a new layer. I would make that either red. I normally do grey, but for here we'll do red. And I would send that to the colorist on a separate layer, because then it's just easier for them to grab, or at least know that you want a color hold in your artwork. I use a lot for like laser guns and like all the portal stuff in Rick and Morty. I've also made Chloe Noonan really strong. Before she couldn't really hit people, or monsters rather, and now she's like lobbing a mace at this monster and like shoving him through a brick wall. Johnny says in the chat, Whitney Cougar, who does Wicked Things and Giant Days, makes all the decisions about all that stuff herself. She's incredible, very underrated colorist. Yes, she is. I always find that she makes Max's artwork the best it can be. Like Max's style has such an animated quality to it, and I think a lot of that is due to Whitney's coloring. Um, I'd be interested to see how long a page takes her, because it looks like an animation, really. It's incredible. All the lighting, all the shading and stuff. Boom have a really good eye for colorists. A lot of their books are like colored really well. Like whenever I see Dan Mora's artwork on like Buffy or Once and Future, whatever, that always looks good. His stuff always looks amazing. Finding a colorist that you find as well is really difficult. Like it's such a difficult procedure, because I've been quite fortunate that I've had mostly really good colorists that like color my stuff. I mean, my lines aren't like that amazing anyway. I think I had like one less good color job um, on a cover. Um, but luckily, I've had pretty good colorists. But finding one, I mean, there's so many out there, which means there's so many bad ones out there as well. I don't think coloring doesn't really pay that great, um, unless you're like a Dave Stewart or a Laura Martin. Laura Martin, is that right? Not the folk singer, or Matt Wilson, Geordie Belair. Um, Hello to Gnarlyverse. They used to color all their own work. Now they don't bother. It's a whole other skill, and I just want to draw. Yeah, man, that's how I view it a little bit. I'm very much now like I'd rather be writing and drawing. Someone else can do the coloring for me. I don't think I've got the eye for it. I can do very basic color. I lack the eye of finding what mood to bring to the piece. So instead of colouring it like the grass is green, the sky is blue, like making like the panel a purple or a red, or it's something that I can't quite wrap my head around, and I'd rather pay someone else to do it rather than learn myself. I had Matt Wilson once tell me I didn't do a bad job at something, so that's a win. I think I met him at Thought Bubble and I showed him my comic. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, that's not bad." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Thanks. You're amazing." You're like a god tier level of colorist. Sorry for the loud gulps. I should have muted that. A bit of ASMR there for you. I forgot I've got the the headphones on. Um, Carpe Liam asks, wasn't there a Marvel colorist who was literally working on their deathbed? Yes, there was. I can't remember the guy's name though, but they passed quite recently. Was it Jason something? Um, that I mean, yeah, that is quite awful. But if 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 they enjoyed coloring, no, actually no, let's not go down that route. Um, Naliverse says colorists have a whole talent they've honed over years. It's not just something illustrators can slap over their work and be done with. At least not if we want to be the best it can be, as you said earlier. Yeah, it's just practice though. Johnny says this in the chat. It's the whole question. Like the more you do it, the more you'll get better. But I quite like collaboration. But as Johnny says, it does cost a fortune. We'll see. We'll see. I do quite like the idea of hiring a colorist to for like promo pieces or covers. Yeah, man. Just yeah. Everyone's different and how they work. You just gotta do you, man. I do find sometimes it's very rarely that it happens when I draw a sketch. So essentially, this Chloe drawing in pencil was my sketch. It just so happened to come out pretty well, and I was like, oh, that can be my loose pencil. It's very rare that you can replicate that excitement unless you're someone like Warwick Johnson Cadwell, who is amazing. But when you're dealing with like a very loose pencil, least I am. I find that I make the mistake, or I seem to go over my mistakes with the line. I don't tend to fix them. So the problem I'm having at the moment is that the lower teeth are sort of interacting with the arm too much. So I either need to bring the teeth higher up or hide the bottom teeth. Because normally I pencil so tightly that it's just a case of me going over with ink without thinking. That's a bit better. There we go. I might have to fix that off screen, but yeah, Johnny says that it's you're having to pencil it and ink it in your head at the same time, and that's hard to do in silence, let alone talking. Yeah, something I'm finding a little bit difficult with the streaming, but I enjoy it because it's better than talking to no one. Thank you, John. I am a hero. I'm keeping the nation's spirits up in our hour of need. Am I a key worker? Some might say. No. Oh, well, thank you, Carpe Liam, for your service. Hope you are keeping well in this trying time. Um, nope. when I first started working professionally, oh, excuse me, I used to get not told off. Um, I used to draw little halo lines. They call it halo lines when you essentially when you've drawn a two black objects next to each other and you want to divide them. You want to show that they're not the same sort of object. I remember the writer I was working with sort of asked me not to do it. I was bewildered by it. Well, I'm doing it now. I'll do it my way. Hello to Philly B. How are you doing on this Thursday? I did think about doing a show and tell episode of my old stuff, but then I realised how horrible that would be. I still might do it. Um, most of my old work is right behind me on my unit. So I see it every day. Every day there's a reminder um, that there is some really shocking LB artwork out there. Gives you some drive, to do something better. Feliby asks, is this a panel or the cover or just an illustration? It's just an illustration at the moment. Let me bring that out and you can see it properly. Essentially, I need a new postcard for my store orders, so I thought I'd draw one. So yeah, but I like the idea that I can reuse it as well down the line. Maybe I could do a Rob Liefeld style sideways cover that he did for X-Force 6, 4 or 6, I think it was. Oh man, there's always the story. I can't remember. I think it was a Hawk and Dove issue that Liefeld drew, and he drew it all like landscape because he's obsessed with gimmicks. And landscape comics can be cool, like the Private Eye by Marcus Martin and Brian K. Vaughan. That's a really cool like landscape comic because it was a web comic. But I remember, I think it was this is on Cartoonist Kayfabe. DC had to hire someone to then take Rob Liefeld's landscape comic and cut it up and then make it portrait or redraw it. Fun times. And then he does his own like landscape issue for like X Force, um, and that was the crossover with Todd McFarlane's Spider Man, which was also landscape. Todd's last issue. So yeah, maybe I'll reuse this for that. For my landscape issue, my landscape gimmick issue. Oh, speaking of YouTube comic channels, a really good one popped up recently called Ink Pulp Audio. They recently had Jim Marford and Troy Nixie inking some Walt Simonson pencils. And Marford's interpretation of Simonson's Batman is incredible. Like, and just seeing him work, like, I don't know how his brain works. I'm always fascinated by like artists like him and like Warwick Johnson Cadwell. Um, who like Marford knows when to pick up and use his toothbrush to draw with, and it's crazy. Such a great guy. And if you don't know Jim Marford, like You are in for a treat. One of my all-time favorites. He did a Generation X Underground special for Marvel back in the 90s. It must have been the 90s, maybe 99. And it was black and white. It was essentially like a Fantagraphics comic. It had like a cardstock cover, black and white interiors. He used screen tone throughout, and this was a Marvel comic. It blew my mind. And then he did the Clerks comics for Kevin Smith, which are good. He likes a word or two though, Kevin Smith. So sometimes the panels are like that big, and then like that much of it is text. Need to draw the mace first before I work out the fingers, I reckon. I was talking on the stream the other day about building like a memory bank of like different outfits and stuff. So like when you're working on a new comic, you've got like if you need like an outfit in a jiffy, you can just pick at it. Um, my fiance suggested I should do the same, but for weapons, like build like an arsenal up, but like draw it like a video game, like so when you select your character and the video game character is like that, and like you just change the weapon. That made me chuckle. That really made me laugh. Just have like Noonan holding like a flame sword or like a dagger or whatever. Because whenever I buy like the art books and stuff of like the art of Adventure Time or Spider Verse or Star Wars, whatever, like the props that they use for like the weapons and stuff is, or even just a chair, so fascinating. So my day was mostly drawing this. But I did something similar a while back where I was like, I want to draw like a Noonan promo piece. I think I showed John this. Show it on the webcam. Like Chloe and Zoe. I made that bigger. Whoop. Yeah, on top of a Tesco with a monster behind them. But then I was like, oh, I want to completely redraw the monster because I'm not happy with it. So that was my day today. Oh, I've given Chloe a furry sleeve when she shouldn't have one. Oh, what a moron. Uh, Johnny asks, is it hard on the little iPad screen to get hand sizes right in a situation like this? Yeah, I do find, because I print everything out, which is maybe an enormous waste of paper. But I do like to print everything out, and yeah, hands are the one thing where, like, I've drawn like a really like tiny fist or something. So um, it's when you zoom out, you start noticing. But I think I've got those all right. I do find sometimes like stuff is just generally out of proportion anyway. You're so like hyper zoomed in, especially like because my eyes are quite bad. I don't have to zoom in a lot, but I find it's a bit easier. So yeah, you don't really notice it until you've zoomed out or you printed it, and then your fiance goes, "You've drawn that wrong." Or your best pal tells you that you've drawn drawn a hand completely like you've drawn the wrong hand and the wrong arm after it's gone to print. That's always fun. Cool. Right, let's start drawing our monster. Monster doesn't have a name, but if anyone wants to take a crack at it. Yeah, Gnarlyverse can relate to my wrong hand and the wrong arm. That's good. I'm glad I'm not alone. I need to get one of those mirrors, like in front of my desk. I do use what's it called? Photo booth on my Mac for anything like that sometimes. Third try. That's not bad with a circle. Oh, Gnarly's suggestion is Levi, Ethan, like Leviathan. Then he says he's funny. That's pretty good. I was thinking more like something like Sick Sid. Sicko Sid. I did a squiddy like character on the second issue of Chloe Noonan. Um, but then everyone was just like, "Oh, that looks like Zoidberg from Futurama," and I was like, "Yeah, I guess it does." And then everyone, everyone was like, "Why have you drawn Squidward from Futurama?" I was like, "I haven't. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." It's such a weird thing. Like sometimes, like I used to get like people telling me that my artwork reminded them of Family Guy a lot. And that used to really wind me up. It used to really like, it used to really like, I don't know, grind my gears because I'd hear it so much, and I just could never see it. And then I realized that like, oh, what they mean is it looks cartoony. Like their frame of reference is just like the cartoon that they watch or something. Rod Stewart recommends Johnny, and Gnarly likes it. Okay, yeah, okay, this can be Rod Stewart. Great, just great. What's everyone else working on? Is anyone drawing right now? I did think about trying to do like a multi-stream, maybe with another artist, but it sounds like hard work. Essentially, I'm just giving myself more things to do than draw my comic. Uh, Johnny Johnny is trying to work out how not to get carried away with detail on pages. Nothing works. Well, you're asking the wrong person because I love my Jeff Darrow style hyper detail, just filling panels with 20 characters, as many characters as I can, all with detail that the eye will never see. Um, Gnarly Verse has just finished work for today. Wow, great! What a great feeling. Gnarly Verse says, I drew one thing over 5 days. I'm slow as F. Well, you've taken the time that you needed to get the drawing done, so that's fine. I wish I spent longer on drawing sometimes. I wish I could. I think part of my problem is that I will give myself like a day to do like a cover, or 2 days, 2 days at a push to do a cover. And if it's not done by then, it kind of is what it is. Um, there was a cover Rick and Morty last year I did for issue 57, which was the ShriftyCon issue. And I looked at that cover again the other day, and I wish I had maybe, I don't know, maybe an extra day on it, maybe half a day, just to maybe get the ink in a bit better. Um, but I had to do. I think I had to do 4 covers that week. Like they really needed them like ASAP. So it was what it was. Johnny says if he spends longer than 3 hours on a page, he feels sick and has to have a lay down. Is that from writing all the way to like coloring and lettering, or is that just drawing? Because I think I'm about 2 to 3 hours on a page. Writing is separate. Yeah, writing is a different thing altogether, which I yeah. It's hard to really calculate writing because you do your draft and maybe your second draft and like then you do like another draft on the lettering sometimes I find. Um, Part of this comic, the comic I'm going to be doing next for Chloe, I'm sort of writing it half Marvel style with myself. So Marvel style is like when back in the day the writer would come up with the plot of an issue and the artist would then go and draw it and then fill in all the beats and then give the writer back like a basically like a synopsis of like, yeah, Spider-Man is fighting Green Goblin, which you've asked for, and then Peter Parker goes on a date with Gwen Stacy. You've asked for that. Um, Peter Parker also hangs out with Aunt May for a bit. So the artist will write down um, whatever, etc. And then the writer would then fill in the word balloons. So I'm sort of trying to do it a bit like that, where I've got the beats written down, But I think I'm going to tidy up the script after I've done the art. That might be bad. I've just got to find my rhythm again. The idea of writing a full script is a bit weird. When I write comics, I just get like an A3 sheet of paper and I just start writing ideas down. Yeah, Johnny says the Marvel method isn't good for humor because you're going to have to reverse engineer timing. Yes. Yeah, that's true. I got most of my timing done though on the script. I figured it out in the. I've done sort of like thumbnails, so I know when the jokes are. But maybe the dialogue isn't like up to scratch. So it's coming up to 5:30. I'll go for a little bit longer. But I have not mentioned yet. It's my favorite thing to mention. If you're watching the stream and you've not smashed that follow button, to give it a follow because it will help me level up the stream. I did see a video on Twitter yesterday of a woman essentially yelling at her watchers for not subscribing, and it was really quite tough to watch. She was like screaming like, "It's just $5, $5." Why? Whoa, okay. So maybe I'll. Maybe that's the approach I should take. It's not. It's not the approach I will take. I'm just grateful that people have turned up, really, regularly. It's been quite nice. I'm going to do them off screen because they're going to take me a little bit of time to do that arm. I'd like to get the bulk of the body done, and I can worry about all those like faffy details afterwards. Ah, Carpe Liam says it's a nice chill stream and you time it perfectly for when he finishes work. Yeah, yeah, the timing was the issue. Because some people were still working, obviously. But I don't want to. I don't want to stream in the evenings. I want to have my tea. I want to have my tea, play Splatoon on Tuesdays. I want to hang out with my lovely other half. She doesn't want to hang out with me. She does. So yeah, we'll keep the streams going. I would love to play music though. That's the only thing I wish I could do, but I don't want to get on the naughty step. I might see if I can play some like Super Nintendo music or something underneath. Because I found a site that has all the video game. John says I should get the royalty free music, library music. Yeah, maybe. It's like when you go into a Superdrug and you hear a song that isn't Beyonce. Yeah, Carpe Liam says you can play music, but you won't be able to have the VODs up after the stream. Yeah, they mute the stream. I've started to put them up on YouTube as well, so I'd like them to have like a bit of an afterlife. Not that anyone's going to watch a 2 hour stream of me drawing, but you know, it's nice to have um, the archive. John says I could sing myself. No, I could sing my scrams. God, I love scrams. Like, I know I shouldn't. I know it's screamo. I know, I know, I know. I'm an older man now, and I shouldn't be listening to that. But there is something in it that really, like, just like fuels the Ella brain. You know what? I do really like that new Hayley Williams from Paramore stuff. I came round to Paramore eventually. I do always find it quite interesting how these emo bands, the more popular they get, the further and further away they want to get from quote unquote emo. But there you go. If you're after an emo recommendation, the new Stay Inside album is very good. It does not sound like emo revivalist in that emo revival was essentially like a good sounding Blink 182, but I don't mean that. Like there are some good Blink 182 songs, but like, this is serious Blink 182. But yeah, no, Stay Inside is a little bit more old school. Not that Unwound or an emo band, because they weren't. But if you're familiar with Unwound, some of Stay Inside sounds a little bit like that. Oh, Unwound are really good. Unwound were a bit Trail of Deady before Trail of Dead. They had that sort of like Sonic Youth thing going on. But are a band that no one has heard about. Carpe Diem, who recently got into pop. The lovable lads from Toronto. Yeah, Pup on my that Pup's album was my album of the year last year. That was a good time. A little bit Jeff Rosenstocky, but like before he started doing like 8 minute songs. I think Jeff Rosenstock did go classic rock. He did a little bit, didn't he? He recently did a covers EP with Laura Stevenson. I think that's her name. Of Neil Young covers, and he's been doing these like Instagram story like live streams of him singing. And he's been playing some new stuff on there, which sounds a little bit more like the Neil Young classic rock stuff. If you're familiar with Craig of the Creek, the end credits song, he has worked up to a full song, which sounds delightful. But it's not like the 5 songs in one ska medley that he did on Worry. Man, I saw Jeff Rosenstock a few years back, and it was the best time. His live album that came out last year was, yeah, that was brilliant. That would have been my album of the year if it wasn't a bunch of songs that didn't come out this year or last year. Um, so I was talking earlier about being influenced by weird Ninja Turtle toys. This character is essentially like, what if I design a Ninja Turtle character? Who's like, he's got a mohawk. He's like a squid dude. He has like spikes coming out of his shoulders. He's wearing like, what was the wrestling tag team uh, that had the red and black costume with the spikes on their shoulders? The names escape me, but he's a bit like that. And I was like googling the old Ninja Turtle toys to sort of like crib some of the costumes and stuff, and they all have these weird sandals on. I was like, I'm gonna give this guy like weird, like futuristic, like sandals. Those toys are amazing. They're like, they're so cheesy. There's like a Mountie moose, and I'm like, this was the biggest toy line of like all time. They've done. It's a moose, but he's a Mountie. I'm like, okay, that's so dumb. I'd love to get them though. I think I went straight onto eBay and just started like looking for like sets. I can write it off. I think I think I might be able to write that off as a purchase. I have a bunch of them still. I have like Leatherhead, who was like the alligator with like a hat and like a denim vest on. I have Baxter Stockman still, the fly guy with like a business suit on. I have a frog who I thought was Mondo Gecko, but he's not a gecko, so he wouldn't be. Napoleon something? I can't quite remember. But he's got like an Hawaiian shirt on. Good times. There's a really good documentary on Netflix, The Toys That Made Us. That Turtles episode is very good. Really sad at some points as well. It talks about um, the not the breakup. Breakup's a weird word to use, but maybe the parting of the friendship between Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. Peter Laird, sorry, not Laird. Laird. But they are doing a new Ninja Turtles comic, which I think is supposed to come out next year. Like every comic, not this year, next year. So yeah, that's quite sweet. It's sweet that they've made up. I think Jim Rugg was talking about being influenced by like trash culture on kayfabe. I quite dig that. I think that's quite a nice way to put that stuff. James Griffin smashing that chat. He's saying, if you like the toys that made us doc, you should watch Turtle Power. It's plus 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 on TTMU. Yeah, I have seen it. I liked it. If it's still on Netflix, I might watch it tomorrow. Um, that whole story like amazes me. How they essentially like became friends because like they were both into Jack Kirby, and the Turtles was a joke. Well, not a joke. It was a game, wasn't it? They one one of them drew a Ninja Turtle, and then one drew um like a different version of the Ninja Turtle because I just read a Daredevil comic or something because they were massively into Frank Miller, and then like boom, it all changes. And stuff they did like they're set in for like creator rights and stuff, like having their name above like the biggest property in the world, incredible. At a time where like creator rights were iffy, like Kirby not like getting his artwork back and everything, which I think Kevin Eastman was quite um, quite important in getting that stuff back. Same with Miller and was it Neil Adams? Johnny says these lines are very tidy. I'm never this sharp on the iPad. Wow, Johnny, I learnt from you, so I don't. I mean, I don't. Sometimes I think I'm too clean. Sometimes I think my stuff on the iPad's a little bit stale, a little bit static. It doesn't have much movement to it. I don't know. I'd like to have a style where I'm maybe using a bit more like kinetic brushing, maybe, or something like that. But I like a clean line still. So I'd still like to do a comic in pencil, but we've been through this before, where you get in the right sort of like contrast on the pencil to get it to reproduce properly is a headache that I haven't quite figured out. Because all the energy comes from the pencil, I find, for my artwork at least. Like if I get rid of these and boost that back up, like the pencils have so much life to them, but it would need so much refining. Like you couldn't just print that; it's a honking mess. But it's got so much life to it. Carpe Liam says, I watched a video about Kevin Eastman spending millions on his comics company and hardly seeing any of it back. Yes, the Tundra story is quite quite the thing. If you've not watched Cartoonist Kayfabe, it's a good channel. They are a little bit like strange sometimes, and sometimes their message is a bit weird. They look back a lot rather than looking forward in terms of comics. But they do talk about Tundra, and they go through that quite a bit. There's a Kevin Eastman Comics Journal interview where I think it is essentially like how Kevin Eastman lost $14 million by not having a clue on how to run a publishing company properly. He bought a tank at some point as well. It's great. It is a very good story. It does like make you cringe though, that someone can lose that much money. 14 million, God. But his heart was in the right place. Like they were talking recently on Kayfabe about because Peter Laird did the Xeric grant. He put his money into given grants to creative individuals in order to then get their work out there. So he did a thing where he gave a grant to comic creators in order to get their comics printed. Like Farrell Dalrymple was a Xeric grant winner. Lots of other famous people who I can't think of right now, who have gone on to bigger and better things. I'm sure someone's going to yell at me in the chat with a good example. So yeah, Peter Laird did the Xeric grant, and then Kevin Eastman did Tundra, and then Kevin Eastman lost $14 million. Carpe Liam says, "Don't pretend you wouldn't buy a tank." I mean, I don't know if I want a tank. Where would I put it? The parking is bad around here already. Without a tank involved. I'm going really dark on screen. Let's there we go. But yeah, Kevin Eastman seems like a good guy. I met him at a comic convention a few years back, and he was super nice. This must have been around 2012. I definitely had some Chloe Noonan comics on me because I gave them to him, and I was like, I wasn't like super nervous. My friend Dave used to help out at the MCMs, and he kind of like snuck me in at the end. Oh yeah, it was a really nice experience. Nice photo with him. Told him the story about my dad taking me to see the Ninja Turtles stage play in New Zealand. We used to live in New Zealand for a very like short amount of time, And the thought of my dad, like, who's an old like blues man, taking me to see this Ninja Turtles like stage show musical, and him sitting there for an hour and a half to 2 hours is like, and like persevering with like essentially like Vanilla Ice style like rapping. Yeah, it's like one of my fondest memories of my dad because because he it just shows how much he loved me. Where he would be like, yeah, no, I'll take you to that, and sitting there thinking, this is awful. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice memory of my dad. My dad's been really unwell recently, so it's nice to think of the stuff where all those nice sweet memories. Don't cry on stream, Mark. Don't cry on stream. Oh, good old Jim. James has said Eastman certainly lived fast at the time. I think the age difference between Eastman and Laird probably made Peter a bit more level-headed. Absolutely, yeah. And I think Laird seeing elder creators as well. This is something I've been noticing as well recently. Is that when you go to comic conventions, you don't really see many older creators. Um, um, so you kind of have to hustle when you're younger, and then you've really got to put it away. You really got to put that money aside because when you become older, traveling becomes more of an issue. Especially as comic conventions are now like 10 to 12 hour days. Um, I can't imagine the older dudes doing that. Who was that? The last MCM we were at, James, was it George Perez doing his sort of farewell tour? Because he's retired. Oh, was it Jim Starlin? Oh, I can't remember. But it was nice to see that person. It was Perez. Yeah, I thought it was Perez. It was nice to see Perez get yeah, a lot of like people turning up and being quite touched that he was there. Um, but I think he had to have a lot of time off, like a lot of breaks. I got a little Kevin Eastman head sketch of a turtle on a copy of a RDW issue 1, which was quite nice. I don't really go in for that like remark stuff, but yeah. James has said Eastman's back doing commissions now, no shows. Well, who is doing shows, but sketching at home. Some nice Sharpie headshots for 200. Yeah, that's if they're just quick sketches, I guess that's pretty reasonable. It kind of seems a bit cheap to me, but then what was I looking at the other day? Jim Lee's doing some auctions for comic shops, which is really sweet. Oh no, Perez, not Eastman. Sorry. Really, that's really cheap then for Perez. Cool. Right. So that's that bit done. I'm going to block in the building around them, and then I'm going to call it a day. Mr. Moneybags over there. I'm just saying, 200 just seemed cheap for George Perez. That was all. I think George is worth a bit more than 200. Did see that Sam Keith drawing going for $7,000 at the moment, which is great. Sam doesn't do much in the way of drawing anymore. I think he's still working on a Batman and Max crossover, but I think that got severely delayed. But man, no, I love Sam Keith. Those Max issues, like, they're a little bit rough around the edges, but that's fine. But they were such a staple of me, um, a staple of my collection in like growing up. Matt did manage to get the Wildstorm paperbacks for them a few years back, but they did that thing where they couldn't get the original files or the original art, so they just scanned the like a printed comic in, and it has that weird like moire pattern on a few issues. So they weren't the best. But they're really inspiring. Like I'm thinking about one of them. I think it was a crossover with Savage Dragon. I think is it like the Marco character, big shark dude. He ends up in the Max verse or whatever. Ends up in wherever Max lives. And it's just a fight issue, and I absolutely loved it. Sam Keith wasn't really known for doing that much in the way of fight comics, but that yeah, there's a lot of like '90s nostalgia at the moment for good and bad. But yeah, I did like it when you want a good punch up for 22 pages. Well, here it is. Gnarly versus a signed copy of Elabisms. Thanks, pal. Thanks for the support. Um, oh, John's offering. I'll do a George Perez for 45. His Head and Shoulders. Open for commissions of George Perez. He'll do a Kevin Eastman for 75 though. What about Mark Ellaby? Well, how much for an Ellaby? 15. That's offensive, but that's fine. Okay. uh, James is saying I should get John to draw a picture of me and give it to Robin as a gift. I think I've got plenty of drawings of me by John. I think I've got one. Yeah, Robin might like it. Sometimes I do offer her photos of me. Not that not that I'm just walking around the house with a photo of me. But I'm like, oh, do you want? I've got these like passport photos done. Do you want some? Do you want one? And she just kind of looks at me like, why? Why would I have this? Where would I put it? It hurts, man. It really hurts. Robin's too cool for that stuff. She's a tough broad. No time for sentimentality. Cool. Well, that's gonna do it. I think we're gonna wrap up. Thank you for joining me on this very sunny Thursday. It's a lovely day today. Um, for a couple of hours drawing Chloe Noonan whacking a monster through a building with a mace. I will be back on Tuesday. I will. Um, at 4 p.m. UK time. If you've not smashed that follow button, now's the time because I'll say your name badly on stream. Um, what else is happening next week? I'm launching my Patreon on Friday, the 1st of May. That's when it's happening. So get your £1 ready, get your £3 ready, get your £5 ready, or your £10 ready because it's happening. Patreon is happening. We're on that road to 50 followers on the stream. Can we do it between now and Tuesday? Let's hope so. What will I be streaming next week? Who knows? Hopefully some Chloe Noonan comic pages. Until then, have a good weekend. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for keeping me busy, and have a good weekend and stay safe and all that jazz. Bye.